effective advocacy led by disabled people organizations. The DPO Sigap, Sasana Integrasi dan Advokasi Difabel, has successfully led advocacy actions that have resulted in protection of rights and access to justice by individuals with disability, and changes to government policies and regulations that were discriminatory and prevented fair and equitable access and participation by people with disability. SIGAP is a partner and key contributor in the implementing of both disability-specific and disability-inclusive strategies and activities in AIPJ. It was formed in 2003 and is located in Yogyakarta. Through its wide networks with both DPOs and mainstream civil society organizations, or CSOs, it has a strong national reach that focuses on advocacy and defending human rights, particularly on legal issues and disability. SIGAP is one of the 2 national-level DPOs that participated in the Asia Foundation CSO Strengthening supported through AIPJ. In quote, SIGAP's ideals are to defend and fight for the rights of disabled people throughout Indonesia so to create an equal and inclusive life. Some examples of the advocacy work that SIGAP has led and supported are shared in this case study report. Advocacy for accessible and fair justice. The DPO's SIGAP and Gerkatin supported a young woman who is deaf and has a learning impairment who was the victim of a sexual assault. They work with the victim and her family, the staff and pupils at the special school she attends, and law enforcement and judicial actors to ensure she had proper and fair access to justice process. The perpetrator of the crime was convicted and is now serving a sentence for his crime. First, the starting point. Research completed by Pusham UII and SIGAP provide strong evidence about the scale and types of barriers, physical, communication, attitudinal, that people with disability often face when reporting a crime to law enforcement agents and in getting their case heard in the courts. A young woman who is a pupil at a Sekolah Luar Biasa or special school alleged that on a number of occasions, one of the male teachers sexually assaulted her at the school. The young woman has a learning impairment and is deaf, which compounds the barriers she experienced in seeking fair and accessible justice. Even before entering the legal process, she faced barriers when trying to report the crime to the school authorities, gaining the support of her parents to pursue action and getting proper medical examinations and assessments completed to provide the evidence that is required to make charges and pursue the court case. Second, accessing fair processes. What took place? Advocacy. SIGAP and Gerkatin strongly advocated on behalf of the victim and her family and gave them support and assistance. They made inquiries at the school where the accident occurred, seeking information from the principal of the school, the teacher accused of the crime, and from other students who may have witnessed or knew something about what had taken place. The initial evidence they obtained indicated a crime had happened. They then strongly advocated that the school report the case to the police and encouraged and supported the school and parents to have a proper medical examination of the young woman for the purposes of collecting evidence, which is a visum et repertum done. Both DPOs strongly advocated that the young woman be allowed to continue to attend the school, which she wanted to do. The DPOs gave support and encouragement to the victim at all stages of reporting the crime, including accompanying her and the family to the hospital for the medical assessment and in making the report to the police and prosecution. Reporting the crime and building evidence for the case. The DPO ensured the victim access fair legal process. They helped to find a sign language interpreter to work with the victim to help her communicate with the police and provide her statement. The interpreter was briefed about gender and sexual violence issues and on the legal process and language to help ensure that she understood the context and could accurately interpret between the victim and the police. SIGAP helped to identify witnesses from the school and put in place a strategy to ensure that the children who gave statements, who also have disabilities, were well supported and felt confident to share what they had witnessed. The DPOs made certain that the process used by the police and prosecutors were sensitively and appropriately managed, and that the witness had interpreters that understood their needs and could facilitate clear and sensitive communication between the children and law enforcement officials. SIGAP made certain that the 3 prosecutors who took witness statements understood the needs and established a positive relationship and gave confidence to the victim and the witnesses, many of whom were children with disability. The court hearings. Staff from SIGAP were always present and on hand throughout the trial. They provided emotional assistance and advice to the victim and her family and support advice to the prosecutor. They observed and monitored the legal processes to ensure that they were fair and non-discriminatory. By engaging the media, they continued to advocate for justice and to raise public awareness and publicity about the case. SIGAP brought together networks in both Solo, where the crime took place, and in Yogyakarta. SIGAP used the skills and knowledge of different actors in their networks, including legal aid organizations, legal rights activists, DPOs, and other activists to support the victim and her family during meetings with the court officials and prosecutors. SIGAP also facilitated links with media, using them to publicize the case and keep pressure on the courts for due process. Some lawyers in SIGAP's networks reviewed the investigation reports and cross-checked the content. In quote, at the hearing with the Sukarjo district chief, or Bupati, and the prosecutor, the parents of the victim were joined and supported by SIGAP and by representatives from Pusham UII, LBH Yogyakarta, Spekham, Lehammas, and the DPO Gerkatin. The strategies that were used. Networks formed between DPOs, legal aid, and legal rights organization and joint collaborative action. Capacities of different actors in the network on legal issues, disability rights, and to ensure and monitor the accessible communication was used at all stages of the process. Advocacy and support of law enforcement officials by SIGAP, initially to ensure the processes established were inclusive and to assist and monitor their implementation. Advocacy on behalf of the victim and her family, and accompaniment and support throughout. Advocacy and support of the school to ensure the crime was reported and assistance to the pupils who also have disability and the teachers who gave evidence. Engagement of the mass media to raise public awareness about the specific case and of wider issues about the risk of such crime and challenges that women with disability face in accessing justice. Factors that supported the positive changes. Strong and effective DPOs that committed time and resources to ensure justice took place. Committed legal aid and legal rights agencies who generously gave their time and expertise. Strength and committed of the victim and family to pursue justice and overcome many barriers and challenges. Willingness of the prosecutor and judge to be open to advice and apply accessible processes. The school management that took action and supported their staff and pupils. Factors that did not support the changes as had been expected or created challenges. High commitment of time and high demands on staff resources of the DPO to provide the level of inputs and support that this case required. Third, the changes that have occurred. Justice for the victim. The perpetrator of the crime is currently serving a 10-year sentence for the crime he committed. When setting the sentence during a later appeal process, the judge noted that the sentence given reflected the severity of the crime and especially took into account the victim being more vulnerable as a young woman with both intellectual and hearing disabilities, and that the perpetrator who was a teacher who held a position of care and responsibility. Awareness and knowledge of the law enforcement and court officials in the jurisdiction. There is now precedence about making the processes of the legal and judicial systems accessible. Knowledge gained by the staff of the SLB and the DPOs on legal processes and disability. They now have a better understanding and experience about how people with disability can access fair legal and judicial processes. In quote, the preceding judge delivered a statement that confirmed the critical importance of having an interpreter in hearings where witnesses with auditory and speech disabilities are present, in line with CUHAP or Criminal Procedural Code Article 178. The preceding judge stated that the defendant's request for not using a sign language interpreter is overruled. The person with disability who will testify is not the only person that needs an interpreter, as the judges and court clerk also need an interpreter to understand what is said by the witness, who is deaf and does not speak. SIGAP has strengthened its networks and partnership. It now has strong links with legal rights and legal aid organizations, and SIGAP is well known, respected, and has good working relationship with the law enforcement and court officials. Fourth, key lessons learned based on discussion with SIGAP. Networks with different actors and stakeholders and drawing on the skills and expertise of each contributes to achievement of a good result. Providing direct individual assistance to the victim at every stage throughout the process strengthen the knowledge and understanding of SIGAP staff and help them advocate on behalf of the victim for fair processes. Collaboration between the DPOs and the CEOs improves understanding and knowledge and encourage inclusive action at both an organizational and individual level. Advocacy and media about the individual case helps raise awareness more broadly with different actors about the issues, needs, and rights of people with disability access to justice. Advocacy for the rights of all women. SIGAP with Komnas Perempuan advocated the Ministry of Health to issue an order to ensure all women in Indonesia who became pregnant through rape have access locally to free DNA tests that are administered properly to meet legal requirements. First, the starting point. DNA tests are rarely made available in Indonesia for women who, after being raped, become pregnant. The reason for this is largely the cost associated with the test. Currently, free DNA tests are only made available to victims in Central Java, West Java, and Aceh. SIGAP was notified through its network members in Sleman of the case of a woman with disability who gave birth to a child after she had been raped. The alleged perpetrator was a civil servant in the local government. The article related. DNA tests rarely used in sexual assault cases. A DNA test may be commonly used in Indonesia to identify victims of terrorist attacks and accidents, but despite the availability of the advanced technology, it is rarely used by law enforcers to help solve cases of sexual violence against women and children. DNA forensic expert Herawati Sudoyo said DNA test results could be used as strong scientific evidence to prove whether an alleged perpetrator was guilty. Second, what took place? advocating on behalf of and supporting the victim. Staff from SIGAP in Yogyakarta went to Sleman to meet the victim and to gather more information about the case. They coordinated with the P2TP2A, the Integrated Service Center for the Protection of Women and Children in Sleman, to try and arrange for the woman and baby to have a DNA test. However, this could not be arranged by P2TP2A because it was very costly. SIGAP then contacted the Komnas Perempuan and they contributed 15 million rupiah to pay for the test from their fund called the Pundi Perempuan. http://www.komnasperempuan.or.id/pundi-perempuan/. SIGAP also approached the office of the inspectorate at the local government level in Sleman. They facilitated getting the DNA test done and also ensured that the alleged perpetrator was tested. P2TP2A supported the victim to have the test done at the hospital. SIGAP was not really involved in this process, which was managed locally. Unfortunately, the legal processes required for tests in the situation were not completed properly and did not comply with legal requirements. The police did not supervise the testing and only one medical doctor verified and signed the test results. The test showed that the alleged perpetrator was not the father of the child. SIGAP reported the irregularities in the testing process to the police. However, the victim did not want to pursue the matter further. To get a further test meant she had to make statements to the police, which at that time she was not prepared to do. Advocating for policy change and implementation. SIGAP had discussion with Komnas Perempuan about the need to ensure women who are victims of rape in all regions of Indonesia have access to free DNA tests. Komnas Perempuan sent a letter on the 30th April 2014 to the Ministry of Health asking for this to happen. The Ministry of Health is committed to issue a formal instruction to ensure that such DNA test is made available freely across Indonesia. The strategies that were used. Advocacy on behalf of an individual and of government on policy implementation. Networking and collaborative action with other mainstream organizations that represent and support women who are victims. Factors that supported the positive changes. SIGAP's active local membership that actively engaged on advocacy and upholding the rights of people with disabilities. SIGAP's network that already had a working relationship with Komnas Perempuan. Komnas Perempuan is aware and committed to disability rights through engagement with AIPJ and DPOs. Factors that did not support the changes as had been expected or created challenges. The victim not willing to pursue the case and the evidence available was not entirely consistent. Local organization or P2TP2A was not aware of the due process required for DNA testing, causing the DNA test to be invalid and considered legally void. Third, the changes that have occurred. The alleged victim took a DNA test and the Ministry of Health is now committed to ensure that free of charge DNA tests are made available in all regions in the future. As of May 2015, the Ministry of Health is yet to issue official letter to the hospitals containing instruction to provide such free DNA test. In quote, SIGAP helped link DPOs and CSOs, which triggered a change in attitude and encouraged them to become agents of change. SIGAP staff. Fourth, key lessons learned based on discussions with SIGAP. All involved need to know about the legal processes and requirements in such cases so that the evidence can be accepted by law enforcers. Networking between DPOs and mainstream organizations can be effective for joint advocacy and action. The human rights institutions have an important role to play in advocating for victims and to government on policies. Advocacy through social media. Publishing a story on the Solidar website about a child being expelled from a mainstream school due to his disability helped raise awareness of the issue within the community and led to the child being allowed to return to school. First, the starting point. SIGAP manages the website Solidar, or www.solidar.or.id, that provides news, resources, and articles on disability rights and inclusion. In 2012 and 2013, SIGAP provided training to 16 people who were interested to become online journalists. The purpose was to build knowledge and skills of journalists on disability issues. This was done through a series of trainings. The journalists who come from different locations around Indonesia then conducted research and posted news articles from their location about disability rights and inclusion on the website. Benny Indo is one of these journalists. He lives in Malang and has contributed articles regularly to Solidar since 2012. In 2014, he was asked by the Solidar editor to research and find a story about children with disability in school. Second, advocacy through media. What took place? Benny reported the story of a 7-year-old boy, Octavian, who had been registered and accepted as a student in a mainstream primary school in Malang. Octavian became physically disabled due to an accident when a vehicle hit him, and due to the injuries he had both his legs amputated. Following his accident, the school determined that it would be difficult for them to accommodate and meet his needs as a pupil with disability. The school principal suggested to Octavian's family that it may be better for him to be enrolled in the local special school, or SLB YPAC. In quote, "When Octavian wants to play sports with his friend or go to the toilet, it will be a problem. That's why the school principal suggested that my son goes to YPAC." Febrian Aritzia, parent. When Benny brought Octavian's situation to the attention of the coordinator of Forum Lingkungan Belajar, or Learning Environment Forum in Malang, he was surprised and concerned about the action of the school. The coordinator noted, and it was reported in Benny's article, that the action of the school was unlawful. Benny also spoke with village leaders. They were concerned and acknowledged that they had been slow to act in support of the child and family. No one at the school initially was available for comment. Benny pursued the school and arranged a follow-up meeting between the school principal and Octavian's parents and the village leader. The school principal denied refusing Octavian access to the school, but did acknowledge that in a situation where there are children with disability, the school often recommends that it is better that the children go to the SLB. He also noted that when Octavian had been brought to the school, he was crying, and this disrupted the other children and the teachers. At this meeting, arranged by Benny, the principal agreed to re-enroll Octavian, and he could resume classes on the condition that the parents accompanied and supported him to school. The village leader made a commitment to assist the child and family and also to monitor the situation at the school. In quote, "This type of disability cannot necessarily be used as a reason to expel a child from school. He has been warned about children's right to education as enriched in Indonesia's 1945 National Constitution. Furthermore, Octavian's house is only half kilometers away from the school. The law regulates that when the child's house is within 1 kilometer radius from school, the school is obliged to accommodate the child." Coordinator of Learning Environment. The strategies that were used: capacity development of journalists on issues related to disability and rights, and on research and presenting stories from website audiences. Social media through the Solidar website were used to raise awareness of the issue. Advocacy by the journalist as part of researching and preparing his article. factors that supported the positive changes. The support of SIGAP and Solidar editors promoting the issue of education and publishing the article. Third, the changes that have occurred. On January 5, 2015, Octavian returned to school. Prior to that, in December, the school met with the family and agreed a plan of support to help him be included and happy in the school. At the end of August 2015, SIGAP and AIPJ staff visited Octavian and his family. He is currently the class captain in grade 1. However, because of his 6-month absence from school, he cannot qualify to pass year 1. Octavian and his mother accept this decision. His mother now escorts and supports him at school. He uses a wheelchair, but as yet the school has not been able to make the environment accessible for him. The school has requested assistance from Forum Peduli Pendidikan of Malang District to consult on the issues of providing accessible facilities. The school claims that it wants to be a model of inclusive school in Sumber Puchung Sub-District. However, implementation to achieve this has been difficult due to problems in coordination between the school and the family. Fourth, key lessons learned based on discussions with SIGAP. Social media is a powerful tool for advocacy. Investigation and research that engages with and brings together the actors and stakeholders is an effective way to bring out the different views of a situation, clarify issues, and push action. Advocacy through social media, targeting holders of power and influence. Action taken by SIGAP in collaboration other civil society and legal aid organization led to the removal of a clause in the regulations of the public universities in Indonesia that prevented people with disability applying for certain courses. First, the starting point. In March 2013, the AIPJ Disability Coordinator and some representatives from DPOs, including SIGAP, were made aware of a discriminatory regulation in university entry application that prevented people with physical, visual, and hearing disability being eligible to take the University Entrance Test, or the SNMTPN. Applicants must successfully complete this test to be eligible for a place in the public universities and pass medical screening test. The rules were formed and approved through the Public Universities Organizing Committee, the Forum Rector, which is accountable to the Minister of Education. Second, removing the barriers for applicants with disability. What took place? SIGAP led the process of raising public awareness. The day after SIGAP became aware of the discriminatory regulation through the Solidar website, or www.solidar.or.id, they arranged a meeting with other civil society and activist organizations in Yogyakarta, Pusat Layanan Disabilitas and LBH Jakarta, to discuss what action to take. Following the meeting, the organization called a press conference and released a public statement. There was a very strong interest from the media, and the issue received a lot of attention in local and national media. Through social media and SMS, information about the regulation was spread nationally through the DPO networks. This promoted others to take public action, which included writing to the newspaper, public protest, and sharing information more widely through social media and on national radio. A debate on national radio, rri.or.id, between representatives of the GPO activists and the deputy rector of the UGM, a university in Yogyakarta, took place. Advocating power holders and influential actors. The DPOs and CSOs prepared a letter that stated their views about the regulation that was discriminatory and in violation of the CRPD, or Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This letter was sent to the Organization Committee for the SNMTPN and to Komnas HAM and Komnas Perempuan. LBH Jakarta became aware of the issue and supported the coalition of 35 DPOs and CSOs to draft a position letter which they presented to the Ombudsman. His office made contact with the SNMTPN and made the committee aware of the Ombudsman's concerns about the discriminatory regulation. The committee then changed the regulation and removing the discriminatory clause related to eligibility of people with disability taking part in the SNMTPN test. The strategies that were used: raising public awareness through social and more traditional media campaigns, networking and collaborative action between DPOs and other civil society and human rights organizations, engaging influential national organizations and activists such as LBH Jakarta and Komnas HAM that have a strong and respected voice, conducting advocacy targeting power holders and influential decision makers, the Ombudsman, targeted use of high-profile and popular media, radio, national paper to get coverage and reporting on protests, press releases, and meetings. Established networks between DPOs and CSOs. Partners knew each other and had previously worked with each other. Connections existed between activists and power holders, the CSOs and the human rights institutions. The strong public interest in the issue and high use of social media by the public helped rapid and wide sharing about the issue and action. Third, the changes that have occurred. Very quickly, the regulation was changed. Unfortunately, the change did not take place in time for the 2013 intake of student applicants. Fourth, key lessons learned based on discussions with SIGAP. DPOs are more effective and successful in achieving disability inclusion when they work with wider networks of mainstream organizations, for example, media, CSOs, activists with specific experience about the issue, and legal aid entities. Media, particularly social media, is a very powerful and effective tool to raise awareness and mobilize interest and action quickly, and it has scope to have national reach. The importance of targeting and involving influential power holders, such as human rights institutions and the Ombudsman Office, when redressing violations of human rights in the public sector. RRI News Portal, rri.co.id, Radio Republik Indonesia, ready to accept Jember University prospective students with disabilities.